Alright guys, welcome back. I don't normally do videos every day, but the stock market is just so much fun right now. I know a lot of people are hurting because it's been kind of a bit of a bear market recently, but on top of that, it's been a very volatile market. The market's been going up a lot, and then it crashes right back down in no time. And on top of that, we're in like earnings season, so everything goes out the window at this time, especially if you're a short-term options trader. But if you're a long-term trader, the the method of just buying and holding long term, dollar cost average in, is still pretty valid here. Just buy the dip. In fact, my QILD dividend drip bought 52 shares at a discount, so that was pretty cool. So today we're looking at some of the earnings that happened on Wednesday, and then I'm going to talk about my option trades for the day. And I think that'll wrap up this video. So it'll be a pretty quick one here. Now, I love this little sheet here. It shows you like all the main important companies that have earnings coming up. And you see Wednesday, there are a couple big ones here. You got Meta, PayPal, Ford, Spotify. We're going to look at those guys. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. You have Apple, Amazon, Twitter, Intel, Roku, Robinhood, Caterpillar, like all 9 of those companies right there. Like, ooh, it's going to be a crazy day. Like another day of exciting earnings, I guess. Uh, you see that I actually got out of most of my positions that have earnings coming up, such as Amazon here and Robinhood. I did take those off. But I'll talk about that in a little bit here. So first, let's go ahead and look at the earnings reports for today. So first off, we have Meta, good old Facebook, and lo and behold, they actually, if I could actually make this white, did pretty good. So at close, Meta closed at 174, and after their earnings, they jumped up to 207 when I took the data down. They were expected for 2.56 earnings per share. They beat that at 2.72. Revenue, they beat that. Or actually, they lost to that slightly. Revenue rose 7% in quarter one, which is the first time in 10 years. So, like, this is really good news at top of good news. So, Meta, of course, skyrocketed. Love seeing that. Hopefully, the other companies report pretty good because I could really use some green days in the stock market right now. PayPal, this one did pretty good as well. So at close, $82.61. After hours, they moved up a couple dollars. They met expectations here, and they slightly beat revenue. They had lower earnings outlook going forward, but they say that their user growth increased dramatically, so that's some good sign. You know, a lot of people trading in PayPal and like Netflix type companies love seeing growth, so the fact that they said their user growth is going up is good. And PayPal, I think that's gonna be around for a while anyway, so that's pretty good. Like, not the best earnings, but I do like that they mentioned growth, so hopefully that's another thing that says, come on, green market tomorrow, right? Next up, we have Ford. They actually reported a net loss, and they're saying that most of it is due to them holding Rivian. I hope I said that right. And due to the global chip shortage, it has limited production, so that's hurt their first quarter. And they said that that cost about $3.1 billion. But if you look, they still beat the expected revenue, which is nice. And then earnings per share beat expectations. And it shot up to 15.10. I think it settled down a little bit lower after I got that data. So it's probably going to be opening up around 14.85 or so in the morning. Nothing too great, but it's not horrible, which is what we want to stay away from. So then next up, we got the Boeing company, and they actually did really bad. Surprisingly, the stock is still up, so I think the sentiment right now is that, you know, the market's going to go up again. I actually think by like the end of next week, SPY might retest 440, that kind of area. So I'm still going to be holding my puts that I have on SPY. I think we're going to be retesting those 440 area not too long from now. Hopefully Thursday and Friday are green days to set my AMD position. So anyway, they reported negative 2.75 earnings per share. The expectation was negative a quarter, and revenue was obviously down. And the articles I was seeing was saying that they reported a loss of $1.1 billion on the Trump deal that they signed to modify 2 747 jets into Air Force One. So the difference between here, okay, that kind of makes up a lot of that loss there in terms of the expected revenue. So I think that might have acted like a little cushion, which is why these shares didn't drop. In fact, they actually went up. And then the last big one is Spotify. You can see again the share price is up after market, which is good signs going into tomorrow, I hope. Expectation was that they would lose 21 cents per share, and they actually did 21 cents per share, so that's awesome. They beat revenue, and they said that their ad revenue was less than expected. I think that's like 11% of their revenue overall. So that's too bad to hear because I know that's going to be something, a big part of their model going forward. But they did say that they had 182 million subs, which is a 15% increase year over year. And that includes losing all the subs from Russia when they pulled out. So like, it's actually pretty good. Now, I don't use Spotify, so I don't really know too much about them, but like hearing all this news, pretty good. Makes you feel bullish, doesn't it? So those are the earnings and stuff that happened today. Tomorrow, like I said, a lot of big companies coming up, so that's going to be an interesting one to kind of sit through. And I feel like tomorrow is going to dictate what the market's going to do in the short term. So if you can wait one more day before going crazy and selling puts and calls, wait until after Thursday, and then I think we have a lot more information about what's going to happen after that point. So my account actually had a pretty good green day, up 2% today. I did realize 1.7, 16,000 or so. Let me go ahead and pull up my trade log. Where is it going to come up? We only need today. And so today I did end up trying to play Tesla a little bit. I did some bull zebras and I got in a little early. I did add more money into the position and double down a couple times. And eventually I was able to get out of that Tesla bull for about $1,650 gain when Tesla climbed back up to, 908. It just seemed like every time Tesla got above 905, like there just was not any volume, no buying pressure going forwards. Like it just couldn't get that oomph to go back up, which is too bad. I was really hoping for it to go back up to like 925 at some point during the day, but that just never came. So when it got to 908, that's when I cashed out, which happened to be when SPY got to 420. So that was kind of funny timing at the same time. SPY's at 420, so made a profit on Tesla. Some other things I did is I decided to close Microsoft. Something about this play just wasn't sitting right with me. Basically, Microsoft shot up significantly, and on top of that, earnings happened yesterday, and I just wasn't at a huge profit on this position, even though we should have had IV crush because earnings is beyond. So there's something still making the market fearful that stuff's going to happen. The VIX is still above 30. It's kind of like everything else is saying the market's going to go up, and then you look at the VIX and it's saying, bro, like the climax hasn't happened. The big reveal hasn't happened yet. Be careful. So that's kind of what it feels like. And ultimately, I decided I'm just going to close this Microsoft thing. What I end up doing is doing that little mind game that I play with myself sometimes. Like if I'm looking at a position that I'm kind of on the fence about, I ask myself, if I wasn't in this position today, would I open this position right now? So would I sell the 265 put for a $1.80 credit right now? And even though it's only like 2 weeks away. And the answer was no, because that's not a 1% return on the play for me, which is kind of like a cutoff for me when I'm opening a new position. So it made it easier to like pull the trigger to get out, even though at times I saw this was a lot higher than $108 gain. And there's just something that, this market is just crazy right now, so I was just trying to take a little bit of risk off. I also do still have 2 SPY puts in play, so that also has exposure to Microsoft, so I'd rather have the buying power available to manage those positions, so just kind of took this one off. Little gain. Wish it could have been more, but we got Microsoft and call it a day. Robinhood. This one, I feel like I just kind of talked myself out of because, honestly, who wants to hold Robinhood at this point? Robinhood was down to, 960 when I closed this, so that should have been like a net neutral for me if you take away the extrinsic value. Typically, I will hold an option in this scenario because the extrinsic value of $100 is going to burn up quickly in the next 2 days. But at the same time, I saw some news about Hood cutting employees, and then we have earnings coming up, and I just felt like since I just made 108 from Microsoft, maybe I could use that just to kind of cancel out Hood, call that a wash, and move on to the next trade. So that's kind of what I ended up doing. That's what I get for selling a put on something I don't actually want to own. And even though I run the no assignment strategy, that's just kind of how I look at it. And then next up, my Amazon bull spread here. This at one point was up like 600, and I still didn't close it. Like I'm not sure what, or not 600. It was like 450 or so. And what was bothering me about this one was the fact that when I opened this, Amazon was at like 2860 or some area of like up there, and then Amazon today jumped down to 2750. That's still pretty far away from this, but we do have earnings tomorrow, so I thought we might not get another chance to get out of this position with a profit before earnings, and I really didn't want to hold this through earnings because, I mean, what happens if a Netflix type scenario comes up and it drops 20% or 30%, whatever it ended up being on Netflix? So that's why I ultimately closed this. I mean, it dropped $100 like the last 2 days straight, and that's without like an earnings report. So if they miss 25.50, might not be safe. It's just not worth the risk for me to hold it on. I'd rather have that $15,000 securing this position being safe. So that's what happened. And then the last thing is obviously QYLD paid a dividend, so that's like an extra $1,000 in my pocket. But I have a dividend reinvestment plan turned on, so that just bought 52 more shares of QYLD, which should raise my income like another $10 a month from the QYLD position. So that's pretty cool. And I want to also look at SPY real quick. Let me pull that up real quick. There's just kind of like a pattern that we've been seeing at the end of the day on SPY. Pull this up, new chart. I usually use Thinkorswim when I'm talking about stocks, but I guess right now would be a little lazy and use Interactive Brokers here. And we'll throw this on the 5-minute candle. And it's just kind of crazy to see how much SPY even is moving within the day. So it was up to 422, jumped all the way down to 415, came back up, went back down, went back up. Like, it's crazy how much it's moving just intraday here. Like, oh, it's crazy. The other thing is, in the last 5 minutes, or even like the last 15 minutes, if you look at the candles, the volume shoots up, and we're getting red candles to end the day. So if you're kind of trying to day trade or time stuff, just be careful of the last 5 to 10 minutes of the market, because it seems to be a popular time for it to drop down. And we even go further back in time and look, big red candles, big drop at the end of the day. Big red candle, decent drop at the end of the day. It's just the volume picks up and it just goes down. So just something to think about is like that's going on a lot. It's like people are afraid to hold overnight, which is kind of a scary thing to think about, that there's that much people selling at the end of the day that they don't want to hold. Like this market is just looking for an excuse to go down. And I'm glad that right now, so far, the earnings reports coming up aren't giving it any credit or, any legs to stand on. So that's why it's the market's been decent right now. Like it hasn't crashed too much. It could go a lot worse, so be thankful it's not been worse. And I think that's gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and like, sub, and share it. And see you guys tomorrow, because I think it's gonna be a pretty crazy day.